welcome to the 700 Club. The number of migrants crossing the southwestern border is on pace for the highest level in 20 years. Republicans are calling it the Biden border crisis, but the White House has also been calling it a challenge.
Well, now Congress is moving once again to take on illegal immigration as they try to deal with the dreamers who are already here in the country. As Jenna Browder reports, the two parties remain far apart.
With migrants pouring across the border and the number of children coming into the country on pace to set a record, lawmakers are rushing to solve at least part of the immigration problem with legislation. In a near party line vote, the House approved a bill Thursday that would give legal status to around 2 million dreamers brought to the U.S. illegally as children. The bill also extends to hundreds of thousands of people let into the country for humanitarian reasons. And in another measure, the House voted to give similar protections to 1 million farm workers here illegally. But both bills face an uphill battle in the Senate. Republicans insist any immigration legislation must also strengthen border security.
Legalizing anybody under these circumstances will lead to even more illegal immigration.
Senator Lindsey Graham, who has for years joined Democratic Senator Dick Durbin in sponsoring the DREAM Act, signaling he's now hesitant to move it across the finish line.
Biden has lost control of the U.S.-Mexican border. Until he regains control by implementing policies that work, it's going to be very hard to do the dreamers or anybody else.
This week, he joined with Representative Maria Salazar on the Dignity Act, which combines legal protections for undocumented immigrants and border security.
I'm offering dignity. What I'm offering is the art of the possible. I'm offering to bring those people out of the shadows. The ones who TPS and everybody who's been here for more than 5 years and does not have a criminal record.
Democrats argue dreamers and farmers need that protection now.
Dreamers are doctors, nurses, lab technicians, contact tracers, and job creators.
This all happening amid serious concerns about the surge of migrants on the border. The White House has labeled it a challenge and steadfastly refused to call it a crisis. But in what seems to be a slip-up, Press Secretary Jen Psaki used that exact word Thursday.
There have been expectations set outside of unrelated to any vaccine doses or requests for them that they would be partners in dealing with the crisis on the border. And there have been requests unrelated that for doses of these vaccines.
And for years, Congress has been unable to come up with a solution for the immigration problem. And with Democrats and Republicans holding steady, it doesn't appear they'll be able to do it this time around either. In Washington, Jenna Browder, CBN News.
It's unfortunate we're still in an election cycle and it just doesn't seem to go away. And so on one side, on the administration side, they've got to change the lingo so it's no longer a crisis, so people can't call it the Biden border crisis. They can't call it for what it is. But let's keep this in mind. President Biden himself called it a crisis just last month. Here's the quote. "We cannot solve the humanitarian crisis at our border without addressing the violence, instability, and lack of opportunity that compels so many people to flee their homes." That was in his executive order on February 2nd, 2021. So here we are in March, and suddenly everything has to change, and we have to call it a challenge. Well, if you're focused on the semantics and not focused on the problem, then we're never going to solve anything. And as a nation, you absolutely have to enforce your borders. And as the executive, you absolutely have to enforce the law of the land. You can't say, well, I'm going to have this open pass. Well, when you do, that's going to spur an incredible wave of migration. It's not just coming from Mexico and Central America and South America. Ecuador has an open visa, and all kinds of people from all over the world are now flocking and joining that caravan in hopes that they can come to the United States. And you have to send a clear signal to them and to the world. No, you're not going to be granted asylum. You're not going to be granted immigration status. We have to enforce our borders. That's why you have nation states. Same time, we've got to solve the immigration problem that currently exists, what to do with people inside the country, and whether they're dreamers or or however they arrived here, we have to come to some kind of consensus. In the current election climate, I mean, you would think we've already had one in November, and can we please stop and start governing? No, we're back into yet another election cycle, and everybody gearing for the midterms, and so they're trying to make this a campaign issue that will dog the Biden administration, dog the Democrats, and as a result, you get into this polarization and you can't get anything done. Now more than ever, we need to pray for our nation, pray for our leadership, that can we please come together? Can we please be one nation under God, indivisible? These divisions are really hurting us. In other news, the Senate has confirmed one of President Biden's most controversial nominees in an extremely close party line vote. Ephraim Graham has that story from our CBN newsroom. Ephraim?
Gordon, Javier Becerra is set to become the Chief of Health and Human Services after a 50-49 vote. It was the closest margin of any of President Biden's cabinet picks so far. Conservatives argued Becerra has no healthcare experience, and multiple pro-life leaders have blasted him for his activist support of abortion rights, calling him an extremist and saying he's persecuted anti-abortion groups, including taking legal action against them. About 50 groups angered by big tech censorship and deplatforming of conservative voices nationwide are calling on the states to take on the social media giants. Paul Strand shows us how.
This letter from activist groups asks the Attorney General in each state to go after big tech for basically lying. It specifically targets Twitter, Facebook, and Google YouTube, raising questions about how each company claims objectivity, yet chooses sides.
If a company tells you, as all these big tech companies have done, that they are neutral and then acts in an opposite manner, that may be a violation of local laws.
Media Research Center's Brent Bozell says 19 states are already fighting back with existing law.
Consumer laws that are on the books to protect citizens from unfair trade practices, and certainly what is going on with big tech applies directly to that.
Some of these tech companies are so large and so monopolistic and so abusive in their actions that we have to take actions.
Both Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton and Arkansas Attorney General Leslie Rutledge are joining the fight.
We're part of these lawsuits, part of these investigations.
Rutledge is going further by pushing a bill to punish deplatforming and censoring.
To seek penalties under the Arkansas Deceptive Trade Practices Act with a penalty of a violation up to $10,000 per violation.
Big tech, though, could have something to hide, as Twitter is suing Paxton in an attempt to stop his investigation. In its suit, it accuses Paxton of unlawfully abusing his authority as the highest law enforcement officer of the state of Texas to intimidate, harass, and target Twitter.
Big tech is just a small group of uncensored, unchecked individuals who decide they want to silence us.
And Mississippi's Lynn Fitch saw that firsthand after Twitter didn't like a video she posted about human trafficking.
I put it up. Within 37 seconds, they took it down at Twitter. If Twitter or any of these platforms can just be so cavalier that they take down an attorney general, wow, that means they're going to take all of us down.
Dan Gaynor warns all those targeted need to figure out now how to communicate outside big tech's infrastructure so these bullies can't gang up and cherry pick which sites and speech to silence.
The conservative movement needs to move ahead building its own infrastructure, because as we saw with Parler particularly, that infrastructure can go away almost overnight.
Paul Strand, CBN News, Washington.
Turning down to the Middle East, a major historical find in Israel announced this week dozens of Dead Sea Scroll fragments, including parts of Old Testament manuscripts. As Chris Mitchell reports from Jerusalem, some of the finds go back more than 10,000 years, and they were not easy to reach.
Since 2017, Israeli archaeologists have surveyed the ravines and caves of the Judean desert. The Israel Antiquities Authority put together the 4-year project to prevent robbers from looting priceless artifacts. Work included rappelling more than 200 feet down to one of the main caves. Inside, the team dug and sifted soil not touched for nearly 2 millennia. Their work uncovered biblical treasures, including pieces of scrolls nearly 2,000 years old.
Wow.
Then they made the precarious trek up the cliffs, taking the treasures to the Israel Museum.
It's a great day. Actually, it's a day where we can show our work in the last 4 years in the desert. It's Sisyphic work, but you can see that we found many significant artifacts and items that belong to the state of Israel.
Perhaps the most important finds are these scrolls from the book of Zechariah and Nahum. These are the first biblical scrolls found in the Judean desert in nearly 60 years. The Jews who fled the Romans in 70 AD brought this scroll to the cave.
They took with them only what was most important to them and what was essential for surviving, and this is one of the things that they took. And this tells us something about how strong their belief was.
The recovered portion of the scroll comes from the book of Zechariah that says, "These are the things you are to do. Speak the truth to one another, render true and perfect justice in your gates, and do not contrive evil against one another, and do not love perjury, because all those are things that I hate, declares the Lord." The team also uncovered the 6,000-year-old body of a child and found an intact basket that they sent for carbon dating.
When the results came back, we were amazed. It is 10,500 years old. It's so unique. It's the only example that looks like this from that time in Israel and maybe in the world.
The find shed light on Jewish history. These coins from the Bar Kokhba revolt against the Romans carry inscriptions that refer to the times of King David and King Solomon. These coins are from the time of Jerusalem's destruction in 70 AD.
The scrolls that we found, the fugitives, the coins, the weapons from the rebellions, but it's not only the story of the Jewish people, the story of the humankind.
Back in the Judean desert, archaeologists say there are still hundreds of caves left to explore, with the promise of finding more biblical scrolls and historic artifacts. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, the Israel Museum, Jerusalem.
Incredible work and incredible find. Gordon?
Well, every day in Israel, it seems like they're kicking over a stone and finding more archaeology that proves the truth of the Bible, the history of the Bible. And it's wonderful to see it unfold. Here, yet more scrolls from the Herod's temple period. These were written in Greek, and it's fascinating to see how much they were treasured by people. Here, people literally fleeing for their lives from Roman soldiers, and the thing they want to take with them is a scroll of the prophet. If you want to learn more about archaeology in Israel, we've got something for you. It's a whole series, archaeological series called Written in Stone. The latest episode is House of David. And so if you want to see this wonderful documentary showing the proof that archaeology has that there was a King David, there was a David dynasty, the House of David. It's yours for a gift of any dollar amount. You'll get instant 4K streaming access. You'll also get a DVD that you can watch and share with friends. All you have to do is call us, 1-800-700-7000, or go to cbn.com, written in stone, or just text King David to 51555. Again, for a gift of any dollar amount, what your gift will go to is producing more documentaries on Israel, more documentaries through CBN Films like I Am Patrick. We're working on one right now about the existence of the Bible, how the Bible came to be. We need your support in order to pay for the production costs. So if you'd like to contribute to that, give us a call, 1-800-700-7000.
Stay connected with CBN News all day across our platforms.
Well, today we're talking about archaeology in Israel, and archaeologists have made an amazing discovery in Galilee. It's a first-century Jewish synagogue in the city that many believe was the home of Mary Magdalene. So what's the significance of this find? Well, Scott Ross explains from the city of Magdala.
Located on the western shore of the Sea of Galilee, Magdala sits at a crossroad of Jewish and Christian history.
Magdala is very significant already just in general culture. One of the most known figures of Christian discipleship is Mary of Magdala. What's the importance of Magdala for the Jewish people? It's a first-century town and a very significant excavation in the first century for the Jewish culture.
In 2005, Father Juan Solana initiated the Magdala Project to highlight the ministry of Jesus and an opportunity to honor women of faith. They broke ground in 2009, and what happened next, Father Eamon Kelly describes as providence.
We bought this piece of land, and then to find it in Magdala, the land, and not just on any hill around the Sea of Galilee. And then you start digging with two prayers. Lord, spare us from archaeology, because it's an expensive hobby, and then a big delay for all the project. The second prayer was, if you do give us archaeology, give us something good. And so we find this incredible discovery of a first-century synagogue.
Seated in the synagogue, Father Kelly told me about some of the features that make it so amazing.
So we're in a very big room, and we see it's organized with 2 rows of seating here in the central part, and we have another row of seating inside the outer walls. This is a space that's not a family home. It's a very ornate community room that has this mosaic and the frescoes, and the mosaic has 2 parts, the rosette mosaic with the 3 colors, but now the specialists are telling us there are 26 colors in the mosaic, and then we have the unending pattern, which shocks some people, but they say this was also in the temple in Jerusalem. And then we have the Magdala stone right bang here. This is the place where we found it. Now, this and the one out there are copies. It's considered and treasured by many archaeologists on the level of the Dead Sea Scrolls in terms of archaeological importance.
Archaeologist Moti Aviam proposed the theory of the Magdala stone, resembling the second temple of Jesus' day.
And I suggested that what we have here is some kind of a model, symbolic of the temple in Jerusalem. We have the menorah, we have the altar, the golden altar, we have the showbread table, and we have a scene into the Holy of Holies.
Because of the commandment against graven images, Aviam says the choice was to portray God symbolically in a divine chariot.
As it is in the book of Zechariah and many other books from the Second Temple period, which gives us a description of the chariot on which God is riding.
So what is the significance then of Magdala, going back in biblical history?
Magdala today gives the largest view, archaeologically, of the time of Jesus.
While there's no physical evidence that Jesus visited Magdala, Father Kelly says the signs are there.
Scott, every day, every group asks me this question, was Jesus here? Was he in this synagogue? Was he in Magdala? And I say, we don't know because we lost all the videos. Jesus was surely present in Galilee, and this is on the path from Nazareth to Capernaum. There's a port here, and he's always crossing the lake. This is a Mecca for the Galilean Sea and fishermen.
At Magdala, the Duke Al-Azam Center is a place for people of different faiths to worship. Its Latin name is taken from Luke, where Jesus tells Peter to launch into the deep. The atrium is designed to honor the Jewish women who followed Jesus in the New Testament. 4 smaller chapels include mosaics illustrating biblical events. And in the boat chapel, a unique boat-shaped altar overlooks the Sea of Galilee.
When the gospel is proclaimed up there at the microphone, it looks like Jesus is preaching again to us from the boat. Imagine you're having liturgy here, prayer, and the boats are going by. It allows people to get into the moment of the gospel happenings.
And downstairs is the Encounter Chapel, where Father Kelly says he believes God is healing divisions between Christians and the Jewish community.
This is part of the road of the first century port. So you know the names of many first century fishermen? So who walked on this street?
Yes.
Now, if Jesus came to Magdala, I say he was more often on this street than he was in the synagogue, in our synagogue.
Magdala is staffed in part by international volunteers.
Sometimes you realize you know very little of your faith, so this helps you to go deeper inside and really to live all the things that you can find out in Israel.
I never been in Holy Land before, so it was taking a huge risk. It was very surprising to see what we think about Israel, the Holy Land, and coming here and seeing the reality.
And that guest house for pilgrims? It opened just recently. What's the vision for the future now?
We had to make quite a few adjustments because of the archaeological discoveries, which enriched the site immensely, enriched it with meaning. And then by finding a synagogue, a huge increase of the Jewish-Christian dialogue. and also the Christian to Christian encounter, because here we have a place where we were not divided. So where Providence is going to continue taking this in the future, I think we'll all be surprised, as we are every day.
Scott Ross for CBN at Magdala in the Galilee, Israel.
Well, Passover is one of the most important nights on the Hebrew calendar. Jewish families around the world mark the occasion by hosting a Seder, a celebration that includes the secrets to the meaning of life. Take a look.
Jewish entrepreneur and philanthropist Mark Gerson wants to share the buried treasures found in one of the most powerful ancient texts in Judaism, called the Haggadah. Within its pages, you'll find the story of the Exodus and Jewish Passover, which has guided families through their Seder celebrations for millennia. In his latest book, The Telling, Gerson shares this wisdom and insight, helping you live a happier and more meaningful life.
Well, Mark Gerson joins us now via Skype. And Mark, welcome to the 700 Club.
Gordon, it is great to be here. Thank you.
Well, your book is The Telling, and that's actually the meaning of the Haggadah. Why this book and why now?
Well, Passover, as you said, is the great Jewish holiday. In the Bible, it tells us exactly what it is. It's two things. It's one, it's the authentic, biblically ordained Jewish New Year, and it's also our spring festival. Two ideas, two concepts coming together to tell us that the spring, the season of rejuvenation, of newness, is upon us. It's coming up now. March 27th will be the Passover Seder, and we should take this opportunity to discover what are the opportunities that are open to us spiritually and opportunities open to us to help improve the world. And the Haggadah exists to guide us through that divine journey.
Well, let's talk about the Passover. Let's talk about the Haggadah and talk about what's the story it's telling. So what story is being transmitted? And it's being transmitted generationally. So what's the story?
The story is the Exodus story. So the Passover Seder, which will be this year on March 27th and 28th, is the oldest running religious ritual in the world. What we do at the Passover Seder is we relive and we retell the story of the Exodus directly from Exodus 12 and 13. Everything we're going to do at the end of March is specifically ordained in the biblical text.
Well, you believe it also reveals the meaning of life, which is that's a big one. So why the meaning of life? What is it in the service that reveals the meaning of life?
Well, the Haggadah is basically the greatest hits of Jewish thought. It's as though the authors of the Haggadah thousands of years ago said, the new year is upon us. How can we pack the most important ideas in the Torah, in our Holy Scripture, into one short book to be used by people sitting at the Passover Seder to help them live a happier, better, and more meaningful life in the year to come? And they succeeded incredibly. And the Haggadah is for our benefit. It's there for our use. It's the original and best ever self-help book, all derived directly from the wisdom of the Torah.
I really enjoyed your book, but one of the chapters that really caught my attention is Bring That Self. And you talk about you actually have to prepare, and part of the service at the breaking of the matzah is that a declaration by the one leading it is that if you're needy, if you're hungry, right, those are the ones who are ready for the Passover, for the Seder. Why is that so important, and what in Jewish thought means bring that self to the celebration?
What a terrific question. So I think the answer is revealed in the meaning of the Hebrew word for panim. Panim means faces. There is no Hebrew word for a singular face. So why would there be no Hebrew word for a singular face? For the same reason why there's no English word for the Bible quoting infant, because there's no such thing. And when the world has no such thing, we don't need a word for it. So nobody has just one face. We all have many different faces. We present ourselves differently when we're playing with our children or our grandchildren than when we're at work. And this great invitation that you just read, that all who are hungry come and eat, all who are needy come and celebrate Passover, tells us the kind of self who should arrive at a New Year celebration, whether it's the Passover Seder or another one in our lives. It's the broken self. It's the self who realizes that I need other people and that other people need me. It's the self that realizes I'm hungry. I'm hungry to improve myself spiritually, and I'm hungry to improve the lives of others materially.
Well, tell us about the history of the service. That it goes back thousands of years. So, would the Jews of the first century have celebrated the same way that Jews celebrate today?
Absolutely, absolutely. If a Jew from the first century walked into my Seder in New York in 2021, he or she could sit right down, participate comfortably, know everything that was going on. One of the staggering things, one of the incredible things about the Passover Seder and the holiday in general is its continuity. There is a sacred continuity to the Passover holiday that is such that if a Jew from the first century, or perhaps if even Moses came into a Seder anywhere in the world today, from Newport News to New York to Tel Aviv, they would know exactly what was going on. They could participate comfortably in telling the great story of the Exodus in what is essentially a conversation that happens vertically between generations, and a conversation that happens horizontally between Jews and our Gentile friends at Seders all around the world in any given year.
Well, you're talking to an audience of Christians, and so I've got to ask, what's the most important takeaway that you want Christians to understand when they read your book?
I think we are living through world historic times, and the world historic time we're living through is that of Jewish-Christian friendship. Jewish-Christian friendship, or Jewish-Gentile friendship, is deeply embedded in the Bible. Abraham's friend and mentor was Melchizedek, the Gentile king. Moses' friend and mentor was Jethro, his father-in-law. And now the Jewish people have such dear friends in the Christian community. This has been 6,000 years coming. It's developed, Gordon, in large part due to you and to CBN and the audience at CBN. Really, in this current generation and in the previous generations when it started, it's ongoing now. We are living in an historic time of Jewish-Christian friendship, and the focal point of this friendship should be the Passover Seder. So I would tell every Christian, find a Jewish home and join them for Seder, because Christians enhance the Seders so magnificently. In fact, the original Seder in the Bible, the last meal in Egypt, it wasn't called a Seder then, but it was the last meal in Egypt, was enjoyed by Jews and the mixed multitudes, Jews and Gentiles together. And let's make that a reality every year.
All right. Well, you can learn more about the Seder, about Passover, and the Haggadah in Mark's book. It's called The Telling. I encourage you to get it. It will really encourage your faith, and you'll understand the essential Judaism in the Passover and also in the Lord's Supper. So, Mark, thank you for being with us.
And welcome back to the 700 Club for this CBN News Break. A group of 57 black Christian leaders is urging the Senate to reject the Equality Act. The bill expands civil rights protections for LGBTQ people, but critics say it would hurt religious freedom in multiple ways. The black leaders warned the bill would remove many of the basic rights that allow religious organizations to operate according to the tenets of their faith. They support an alternative bill that would protect religious freedom as well as LGBTQ rights. CBN's Operation Blessing is bringing free, life-changing surgeries to people around the world. When Jesus, a young boy in Honduras, turned 2, his father Jonathan noticed he was struggling to see and would often fall when he tried to walk. A specialist diagnosed him with congenital cataracts in both eyes, but a staff member at his clinic told him about Operation Blessing. Thanks to the support of Operation Blessing's partners, Jesus soon got the surgery he needed, the cataracts were removed, and his sight was restored free of charge. His father, overjoyed, thanking Operation Blessing through the years. You can learn more about what Operation Blessing is doing by visiting ob.org.
Boshen's parents had to keep rushing their son to the hospital. At one point, he had pneumonia. At another, he went into cardiac arrest. As soon as he recovered from one illness, another would strike. All the while, his parents worried that their son's next illness would be his last.
Before their son was born, the G's daydreamed for hours about his future. They hoped Bo Chen would be strong and live a happy and healthy life. But it wasn't long before he started getting sick.
His lips turned purple, and his immunity was weak. So when he caught colds, they lasted for over 2 weeks. Sometimes he cried so much, he fainted.
It turned out that Bo Chen had a hole in his heart.
I couldn't believe it, so I had ultrasound done. It showed he really did have heart trouble.
Mrs. G kept a close watch on Bo Chen and spent all her spare time looking for ways to help him get better.
Bo Chen had a hard time breathing, and he was so tiny. I worried his brain and bones wouldn't develop right. And when I looked online, I found out that children like Bo Chen sometimes don't even live to be 3.
Mr. G worked hard to support his family, but there was no way he could afford surgery for his son. Over time, the hole compromised Bo Chen's lungs, and he didn't get the oxygen he needed. Once he went into cardiac shock and ended up in the hospital.
I asked my husband, "Do you think he will live? I wouldn't be able to handle him dying. He was part of me."
I remember our wishes, but now our boy wasn't going to be strong. The doctor even said Bo Chen wouldn't be able to do anything strenuous.
Bo Chen got pneumonia and had to go back to the hospital several times. Finally, someone there told the couple about CBN. They contacted us, and we set up heart surgery for Bo Chen right away.
You fixed everything. CBN's love made my family feel so warm.
Bo Chen started gaining weight. Now he's healthy. He loves to smile and he's happy every day.
He's smart and will live a long life. If CBN hadn't helped us, I don't know if my son would have made it.
Thank you for providing us such timely help, and thank you for giving us hope.
Hope. You can't put a price tag on it. That thanks goes out to you 700 Club members. You are the ones who make it possible for us to step into hopeless situations like Bo Chen and his parents were facing and give the gift of life. And that's just one of the things you do if you're a 700 Club member. You're touching the lives of people in need all around the world as well as right here at home. To the rest of you, if you haven't joined the 700 Club, this is the moment. We would love to hear from you. Our number's toll free. It's 1-800-700-7000. Just call and say, I want to join the 700 Club. We have lots of club levels for you to join at, but a general membership is just 65 cents a day, $20 a month. If you're already a general member, go up to 700 Club Gold with a gift of $40 a month. Some of you might want to join as 1,000 Club members at $84 a month. As you can see, we have a 2,500 Club level and a Founders level. Do something today to make a difference. It will just bless you as much as it blesses those that you're helping. You'll be amazed at how good you'll feel about the fact that you're making a difference in the world, especially in these days where sometimes you feel like there's not a lot you can do to make a difference. Joining the 700 Club is one way you can. And here's an extra thank you to you. We're going to send you Pat's latest book, I Have Walked with the Living God. He talks in here about the years of following the Lord and God's great faithfulness to him. He also shares candidly about mistakes he's made and how God has continued to bless him and use him in spite of that. And so we want you to have this. It'll be inspiring to your walk with the Lord. I think you'll find it fascinating. I did. My husband's reading it right now and hasn't been able to put it down. So we're going to send this to you when you join the 700 Club. 1-800-700-7000. Call and say, I want to join the 700 Club. Thank you. Gordon?
4 suicide attempts on Easter Sunday. Terrence just wanted to check out of life addicted to gambling and booze. So what stopped him? And how did this lifelong runner finally cross the finish line into a brand new life? Take a look.
I seen the lure of gambling. I started putting in $20, then $60, then hundreds, and then eventually it turned into thousands of dollars per night while I'm drinking.
Terrence Crosschild is a tribe member of the Blackfoot Confederacy. In summers as a boy, he found joy in running on the beautiful southern Alberta reservation.
And it's quite amazing because you see the views, the rocks, and then you get to find the horses and then chase them back into the corral. So that's when I really realized that I really loved to run.
His passion became his pursuit, and Terrence accepted a college scholarship to run cross-country at Medicine Hat College in Alberta. While there, he met Celeste, who was also a runner and a Christian.
It was just a relationship that just grew through running, and we fell in love with each other.
They were married in the year 2000, and soon started a family. He worked in the flooring business, and as the company grew, so did his desire for money and alcohol.
I started attending pubs, having a beer. I started chasing after the acceptance from other contractors, and money just really started to run my life.
One day in 2007, Tarrant got a call from his mother, who owed him money for 2 months.
And she says, "Tarrant, I'm sick." I said, "Mom, I know, you're always sick. You didn't pay me back. Don't call me until you pay me back that money."
It would be the last time he would speak to her.
She ended up dying an hour after I yelled at her and hung up the phone on her, realizing, what kind of son did I become? Who does that to their own mother?
Tarrant stopped running and drowned his sorrows in alcohol and gambling.
I started drinking more beer at night, during the day, as the weeks went on and the months went on after my mother's death.
His substance abuse took its toll on his family.
My daughter, she would sprawl her body right along the door, just blocking the door, crying, pleading with me, "Dad, just please stay home." Just the grip of the addiction overpowering the thought of being home with my wife and my 4 children.
His family continued to hope and pray.
Little did I know my wife and my kids would be kneeling down in the living room, hand in hand, praying.
His gambling took money from the family, and soon he defaulted on his mortgage. On Easter Sunday 2014, while his family was at church, Tarrant decided to take his life.
After drinking more beer, I went into the garage, found a rope, tied it up there on the 3rd rafter. After my 3 failed attempts, I went back into the house and I was mad. And I found a bottle of extra strength Tylenol, consumed the entire bottle. And meanwhile, I was down over 24 beer.
Celeste returned from church to find Tarrant unresponsive and rushed him to the hospital.
And after a few days there, I said, "Celeste, I need help." I didn't want faith help. I just wanted secular help. Because in my mind, I would think, how can God fix everything I have done? How can he redeem me? How can I be set free from my past?
A nurse told Tarrant about Teen Challenge, a Christian-based rehab facility.
And as she's telling me this, I realize I'm not shaking. I'm not sweating. I feel calm. I feel peace.
Tarrant committed to the 12-month rehab. On his 2nd day, something changed his heart.
Worship team is up. They start singing this song, Amazing Grace. My chains are gone. I felt like the chains, where I'm bound in addiction and gambling and sin, I felt like they've been broken. What's my life gonna look like now?
Tarrant found out that members of the church had taken care of some of the family bills. In fact, they received so much help, they were able to keep their house.
When I graduated, I returned home to my family. We renewed our vows. We returned to our home, and I started my business back up.
Tarrant also started running again. That year, he ran the Saskatchewan Marathon. And though he didn't win, he drew national attention and gained a sponsorship with New Balance.
When I crossed the finish line, I really felt, God impressing on my heart that, yes, this is a finish line. But to you, it's a brand new start to a brand new life.
He now travels Canada with his Child of the Cross ministry, donating shoes, putting on races, and sharing the gospel.
I knew I wanted this community to be able to feel that same thing, an experience and a victory, something positive in their lives.
And for the positive in his life, Tarrant credits the power of prayer.
Celeste and the kids never stopped believing. Being able to still pray, to still being able to believe that her husband's going to be better someday. Her husband's going to come back to Jesus Christ. It happened right in front of me in my life. So this Jesus is real, and I know Jesus wants a relationship with everyone.
And that means you. He wants a relationship with you. It's incredible news. the Creator, the one that by whom and through whom all things were made, to him all things are going. Here's the amazing news. That same Jesus, that same Savior, wants to have a relationship with you. He wants it so badly and so much that he was willing to die for you. He was willing to leave heaven, come to earth, be born in a stable, to walk things out, and to do that without ever sinning, without ever violating a single commandment. He did it so that his blood would be the perfect sacrifice for you. He did it for love. For the joy set before him, he endured the cross. And that joy is you. That joy was Terrence. That joy was his family being restored. That joy set before him. To realize that he, through that sacrifice for the sins of all people for all time, through that sacrifice, you could find righteousness, peace, and joy. It's incredible. It's the best news that the world has ever heard, that there was someone willing to change everything for you. Now, here's Terrence, and maybe you're like him. You think, well, how can anybody fix this? How can anybody undo it? How can anybody make it right? And those are really good questions. I know I had those questions. It was like, okay, have I gone too far? Have I done too much? Is there any path for me forward? Is there any way? And I remember trying to figure it all out and saying, okay, well, if I do this and if I do that, then, all these kinds of things. All of which was trying to, in some weird way, fix things so I'd be good enough for God to pay attention to me. All of that ignores the good news. Let him fix you, because you can't do it. You can't undo it. There's not enough good things you can do, good thoughts you can have to undo what you've done. Only Jesus can do that. Only God can do that. If you can figure it out, if you can, find some mental way to do it, well, you would have already done it. Here's the great news. If you can figure out what to do, well, then you don't need God. But with God, all things are possible. He can change you. Now, you heard the story of Terrence. Here's someone who's lost in addictions, and it was addiction to gambling, it was addiction to alcohol. He got so desperate that he attempted suicide numerous times. You even saw the rope he tried to use. And he tried all of that, and then he decided, well, I'm going to overdose on extra strength. He tried to check out. He tried to say, I want to end it all. But then you heard him on the second day where he said, okay, I'll try God. He's in a worship service. He's listening to a wonderful song, Amazing Grace. My chains, isn't that? I've been set free. Chains have gone. Your chains can go. Your habits can change. Your very mind, your very existence, all of it can change. You too can be set free. Jesus is waiting for you. All he's looking for is for you to say, okay. Just a little nod, a little assent to say, Jesus, okay. Let's do that right now. Let's pray and let Jesus do all the rest. Jesus, I come to you. I need to be set free. Break the chains in my life. Forgive me. Give me a new life. And if you do this, I'll follow you all the days of my life. Hear my prayer. I pray it in Jesus' name. Amen If you prayed with us, let me know. Call us, 1-800-700-7000. Here's a word from Romans. If you openly declare that Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart, you will be saved.